Alright, now that you have, hopefully, let's continue. Of course, I attacked them at once. At first I was thrown back, losing many of my peasants and some swordsmen. Then I laid siege to the place, having my men construct engines of war. The catapults I constructed finally cast down the walls of the town. I was tempted, since my honor had been insulted, to burn the filthy place to the ground and slay all within. Before I could give such an order, my advisor, formerly the old peasant and now an ordered chamberlain, pointed out that I could turn the town to my use and wealth. It was there that I discovered much about this land. The town I had thus taken was a barbarian town, and was filled with creatures unique to such a place. There I brought into my service more orcs, wolves, ogres, and trolls, along with a powerful cyclops. I found out as well that there are many other towns scattered about the land. Some are towns of humans alone. Others are controlled by a sorceress, and magical creatures reside there. A few towns, which are hard to find, are ruled by warlocks, and have within their walls powerful and dreadful creatures such as minotaurs, gargoyles, and even dragons. I am not yet prepared to deal with such, and shall avoid these boroughs. I found out as well that there are other kings who lay claim to all the lands and wage war. They have heroes of great skills in their service, and I am warned, now that my power is considerable, attention will be drawn onto me in an attempt to block the growth of my strength. It appears I have no choice but to act against others before they cause me grievous harm. I plan now to go forth and seek out these other kingdoms, to humble them and place your stand-up upon their battlement walls. Say hello to Ween for me and ask her if she still has that curious birthmark. So in the maps here that I'm showing on screen, I have to note that in green I marked what would possibly be under control of the sorceress, in blue the barbarian, and in red the warlock. And the map itself is actually taken from Might and Magic 6, the Mandate of Heaven, because it's the same continent as the story that we are hearing right now takes place. So, continuing on. Third day of the month of the mongoose, common year 638. Ragnar, it has been 3 years since my last note, and I have heard nothing of you. I wonder if you know of my existence in this realm and do not wish to reply. The bill for my initial cost stands, and I have a copy attached, should the first have not reached you. I have fought 3 long and hard campaigns since last I wrote. Marching out from the first town I captured, I wandered across strange lands of mountains, deserts, swamps, and deep woods. There were many creatures to contend with, some of great strength, some willing to rally to my banner, some wishing to tear it down. Of those who stood in my way, their bones now lay bleached in the sun. After long weeks of wandering, I met an opposing army that had come to smite me and had a long and difficult battle with it, losing more than half my host. Finally, I bested in single combat the hero leading the enemy army, and took him as my prisoner. Shortly afterwards, I received a missive from the hero's liege lord, offering ransom, which I refused, for the amount offered was insulting. I then received another offer, which was far more munificent. I agreed to accept the ransom payment, and thus refilled my empty coffers. The hero I released parted from me in good spirits, promising we would meet again. To which I replied that I prayed it would be so, for I would undoubtedly need more money. I came into a town next to an open sea, and took it after a difficult battle. There I captured another hero, and this one pledged service to me. Now with this leader to serve me, I made a fateful decision. I split my army, sending half of it with him. Purchasing boats, my hero took his army and then led them to great distances, exploring many strange and wondrous lands. I received information from him and was able to draw up maps of all that I thought I now owned, and was well pleased. Unfortunately, my hero met with an evil magician who destroyed him and my army. Then came dark and difficult days. The great prince of another realm sent a powerful army against my capital city, which you will recall I named after you. I regret to report that the small garrison I left there was overwhelmed and the city taken. This created great difficulties, since one of my main sources of income was thus denied me. It forced me to march back, bringing my depleted hosts with me to retake the town. This I succeeded in, but then I lost the other towns in my possession as well. Ragnar, I am fighting a difficult battle here, and you have not helped me one bit. 20 or 30,000 in gold would be a great help right now if you wish me to keep this realm in your name. By the way, do ask Gawain about the interesting time we once had, and both fondly remember as the Night of Madness. 11th day of the month of the Lizard, common year 641. Ragnar, I have survived the last 3 years, no thanks to you. I thought for a time that all was lost. I had but one town, my capital, that the residents insisted on calling Ironfist Keep. Twice I was besieged, and twice I repelled the attacks. Both times I captured the hero leading the attacking hosts. The first of these heroes was the same one I had captured before. Thinking that I could gain great wealth, I held him for ransom. I received a paltry offer the first time and reasoned that I had but to hold out and his master would offer a great sum. I never heard from that skinflint of a king again. I asked the hero to then serve me, but he refused. I was bound by the code of royal blood and could not execute him, and thus had to let him go. I had lost a hero and had no ransom money to show for my effort. The second time I was wiser, and upon capturing the hero of the next attacking host, I immediately made an offer to him, and he gladly accepted the right to serve me. He has become a powerful ally. While still protecting the source of my power, I sent him out, and he recaptured the town I once held to the south. I built my wealth up, investing in yet more structures to bring various creatures and brave warriors into my service. I had found that moving forward aggressively at the start of things might win great glory and honor, but also left one vulnerable to attack from the rear. The next time I was attacked, I repulsed it easily, driving my enemies before me and hearing the lamentations of their loved ones. At great expense, I built jousting arenas to attract great and powerful knights into my service. And then at even greater expense, I erected a holy cathedral, so that mighty paladins would rally to my banner. I did not neglect the realms of magic either, for it was due to a weakness in such spells and powers that I had nearly been bested for the first time I ventured out into the broad and dangerous world. Though they are expensive to develop, they are worth the investment. The powers of those who wield magic are many. They have mastered arts here that your useless court magicians can barely imagine. There are various spells of protection and attack. There are spells that can burn an opponent into cinders or turn them into ice. My magic users have spells that can enchant and spells that can block the strikes of swords and spears, while there are yet other spells that can aid greatly in the difficult art of siegecraft. At great expense, I commissioned my magic users to master such subtle arcane arts as the ability to turn undead, to provide protection against the magic of others, to cure, to bless my warriors so that their strength increased, and to blind my opponents so that they could not see where to attack. I think I should add here that the pathetic wizard Guthbert, who caused me so much trouble in your realm with his loose tongue and could not strike a mouse dead, would have been burnt to a crisp by the rivals he would face here. I also developed my contacts with the Thieves Guilds, and thus learned many secrets from them to help me in the campaigns I now planned. After thus consolidating my powers, I set out on an expedition that brought another hero into my service. I now had 3 armies. One, under the command of a trustworthy hero, I left to protect my homeland. The other I sent south to sweep back down to the sea, while I marched eastward across broad open plains. My hero in the south reached the coast where I had first marched years before, and taking a town there, he greatly strengthened it. A lighthouse was constructed to aid in the sailing of ships. I commanded him to move upon the flowing waters with caution, for there were many dangerous creatures, brigands, and rival heroes upon the sea. He guided his ships up the coast, taking the town of a sorceress, and thus did my power wax greatly. Islands were next taken, and their wealth added into my coffers, denying at the same time such wealth to rivals. And then disaster struck yet again. A shower of great stones, trailing fire, plummeted from the heavens, smiting down the host of my hero. It seemed as well that as I grew more powerful, an alliance was formed between the rival kings to turn their combined strength against me. As a result, all that I won in the south was lost. I knew that if I stayed on the defensive, the enemy would march to my gates. Therefore, I set out to meet the new threat. But this time, I did not make the foolish move of stripping my capital and the towns close to it of their defenses. My reasoning was proper, for through some great and powerful magic, an enemy army appeared, materializing out of thin air near my capital. They were repulsed, but at great loss of the city's warriors, wizards, and wealth. I now realize as well that I had neglected to build up strength with the great and dark creatures such as gargoyles, minotaurs, hydras, and the dreaded king of all, the dragons. Thus I set out to bring the towns of warlocks under my command. I found that, though a paladin was indeed a mighty warrior, he was, as they say, burnt toast when confronting an army with dragons. I shall work hard in these areas, and then all shall tremble before me. I am curious to know, is a wheel's breath as disgusting as I now remember it to be? 21st day of the month of the rat, year 1 of the new age. Ragnar the Usurper. It has been 5 years since my last missive. I can imagine how things must fare you there, sitting fat and blotted like a corrupt spider upon your cheap web of a throne, which you wrongfully assumed and which you have wrongfully held. My strength here has indeed risen like a phoenix from its earlier ruin. Many and great battles have I fought, citadels I have cast down, cities have I taken and raised my banner over. Heroes aplenty now flock to my cause. I wonder what you have done of late, sitting safely behind your castle walls. While bards shall sing of my name, your memory will be nothing more than sayings and drawings about you and your so-called queen carved on the latrine walls. After long years of consolidating my strength in all areas, raising levies of peasants and pikemen, mounting warriors on horse, legions of ogres, goblins, and trolls, marshalling the strength of magic users and placing in the van the great creatures, such as hydras and dragons, I set forth to sweep all before me. 3 of the high kings of this realm united against me. They laid cunning traps for me and placed great strength in their cities. Many were the heroes they arranged against me, so that at one time I faced 6 different armies closing in upon me from all points of the compass. It was then that the great investment I made in magic was rewarded. Twice I was able to teleport entire armies clear across my empire, placing them behind the advancing foes to crush them. I was able to control an oracle, and through her, and by way of the Thieves' Guilds, I learned the secrets and intentions of my enemies. This was no small thing, for it enabled me to place my armies to parry their thrusts, and throw my armies into lands where they were weak. The cost of such campaigns was great. I spent in a month what but a short time ago I would have believed to be undreamed of wealth. But if one wishes all, they must risk all. I cast down 2 of my great rivals, and finally there was but the great Lord Alamar to face my powers. Ragnar, you are but a groveling beggar compared to such as he. Long we struggled. He launched one attack that swept all the way into the heartland of my realm, forcing me to teleport back to deal with the threat. Finally, I was before his great and wondrous capital city. My siege engines smashed down his high towers. Dragons struggled in the air overhead. Hydras wrestled upon the ground. Great legions of swordsmen, archers, dwarves, orc and peasant levies gave battle, so that the ground was covered with the slain. With my magic welders about me, I gained the wall, and there did I fight with spells, fire and sword against the great Lord Alamar, and his wizards that has already become a myth told by peasants around campfires. He was cunning, mighty was his sword arm, great his magic, and brilliant his strategies. But they availed him for naught, for in the end I cast him down, and my only disappointment was that he was able to flee into distant realms. So now, Ragnar the Pig, I own all this land of heroes. All creatures within it acknowledge me as the rightful king. I shall rule it with justice and wisdom. I shall guard its borders well, for I have heard yet more rumors of wars in distant lands, and evil kings that plot their return to overthrow me. Let me add here that I view it as fortunate now that the fool Cuthbert failed so miserably in his attempt on your life. If the plot had succeeded, I would have but been a petty lord in a petty realm, which is all that you now have. Your father murdered his brother, my father, to take the throne, and you then took it from him. I was forced to flee with but a handful of retainers into unknown lands, and here, in the realm of heroes, I have carved out an empire to which a few paltry counties pale in comparison. To those who risk all may come as the reward. This shall be the last of the letters I will post at the gate. If you hear from me again, it will be because the gate has opened, and I shall come through it, sword in hand, seeking justice. Farewell, Ragnar. P.S. If Ewine is still with you, tell her I have married and I am quite content. My companion has all the attributes that she did not: trustworthiness, intelligence, beauty, and kindness. Beyond that, she bathes more than once a year and is not surrounded by a cloud of flies, something I found to be most refreshing after having known Ewine. So that does it for the manual for Heroes Might and Magic 1, a strategic quest. So these letters are quite interesting, as you saw on screen. I managed to make a bit of a reconstruction of how this could have gone. It's not canonical, but then again, it's the best that we can get at this point in time, I believe, because there's very little resources that tie the first game to later games, where the story was actually expanded quite nicely. Still, this manual does explain quite a few things, and it's very interesting for several reasons. So one thing that was noted here is that Morglin Ironfist said that your father murdered his brother, my father, to take the throne, and you then took it from him. it's not entirely clear, but it could be that Morglin Ironfist's father was indeed Lord Ironfist that we saw in HoMM1 Secret of the Inner Sanctum. Then again, it could also be Morglin Ironfist's grandfather or perhaps great-grandfather. So it's hard to put things into perspective with certainty here. Still, it's a fact that Morglin Ironfist was a descendant of that Lord Ironfist. And also the fact that this happened means that Lord Ironfist was dethroned by Ragnar's father, and then Ragnar then holds the throne because of inheritance, I presume. And thus the whole thing happened because Morglin Ironfist wanted revenge and to regain the throne. So that's interesting. Also, the fact that a portal opened is also quite an interesting fact by itself. We do know that there are gates to another world on VARN, although we have not seen any gates that would open just because. But then again, we do know that there are things like Town Portal and whatnot in games, so it is possible that this was some kind of a magical phenomenon, or maybe it was a technical phenomenon, but due to certain laws that say that sufficiently elaborate technology is indistinguishable from magic, well, it could be either way. But yes, it's an interesting thing to note, too. Also, it is quite interesting how the dates go, like year 1 of the New Age. I guess that's because at that point Morglin Ironfist decided that he was the ultimate ruler of the continent of Enroth, on the world of Enroth. And the previous ones were like common year. So that's also interesting. I'm not sure how this ties into anything else. Maybe it uses just a completely different dating system than with all the other games in the series. Or maybe, well, I don't remember if there was any indication of time in Secret of the Inner Sanctum. Maybe there was. If there was, then this is probably related to that, and by counting the years, you could tell how far of a descendant Morglin Ironfist is from Lord Ironfist. So yes, that's something to think about. Then I'll just go through the manual to show off some of the nice pictures that you have here. Otherwise, it's not very interesting. It just says how to control the aim and whatnot, and we already know how that works. So here's a hero, apparently. Then another hero with a nice flag. There's a griffin with some shield and axe. I guess the griffin just defeated a dwarf or something. That's probably a gargoyle. That would make sense. And this is definitely an elven archer. Then this is, of course, a pair of wolves. And here's... I'm not too sure what that is. I mean, these guys are swordsmen, obviously. But they seem to be in a sword shop. But then again, this is not an RPG, so there are no sword shops like that. I don't know. That's an interesting wrapped sword. Then this is probably a troll, given that this guy is sitting under a bridge. But he doesn't really look that similar to trolls in the game itself. So I'm not too sure what it's up with that. Then this is probably a dead hero, because in this game there are no skeletons. And this looks to be a warlock, because in later games there will also be things like that, where warlocks really like to dress in sorcerer garb like that. Then this might be a sorceress, but then it might also perhaps be a female warlock. It's hard to tell with all those spellcasters. This... hard to tell, but looks like this is one of the shipwrecks, which are haunted by ghosts in the game. Then that's a Cyclops, obviously, near a Cyclops pyramid, which is indeed their dwelling. Then a Minotaur with an axe, which would make sense, but actually in this game Minotaurs use the kind of morning stars instead, so it's a bit strange. Okay, nothing interesting there. There's a paladin, obviously. Quite a nice image of one. In the game itself they don't look quite as regal. Obviously this is Morglin going through a portal. Looks as if it was kind of a monolithic structure there. So that's something to think about too. This is probably the hills near Castle Ironfist, or perhaps the hills near New Sorpogal. This is a barbarian hero, obviously. This might be the same barbarian hero fighting against someone else. But then again, in this game, heroes don't actually fight each other. Instead, only cast spells and whatnot. And you will only get hero versus hero battles in Heroes Might Magic 4. Yay. Okay, and this is probably a cavalry. Fighting against another cavalry, perhaps? Yeah, this is probably their dwelling, the jousting place. And this is clearly a sorceress. And I think, oh, there's pikemen and also a castle. And I think that's it. No, there's also a centaur, which is also not really correct with what is in the game, because they shoot from bows in the game and don't use swords, whereas in Heroes Might Magic 3 and Heroes Chronicles they use spears. Okay, so this was everything. So yeah, that was that, and in the next video I will start actual gameplay of the game. I will see you all then. Later.